Sorry if I can draw your attention to the podium. We have a luncheon speaker. She was announced as a keynote speaker. To my knowledge, you can't have co-keynote speakers, so that was an error on our part. Jim Ciccone this morning was our keynote speaker. But we're honored, nonetheless, to have Rhea Brown-Lawson, who's the director of the Houston Public Library. I met Dr. Lawson when I first arrived here in Houston when we were having a conference on emerging libraries last year here at Rice. And she is the 6th director of the 101-year history of the Houston Public Library. It's a library that serves 2.2 million people of diverse ethnic, racial, and social backgrounds. And it ranks 7th among the nation's largest public library systems, according to service area. Before moving to Houston, Dr. Lawson served in a number of capacities, including Deputy Director of the Detroit Public Library, Chief of the Brooklyn Public Library's Central Library in Brooklyn, New York, and Assistant Director in the School of Library and Information Studies at Wayne State University, which is Michigan. Yeah, Detroit, Michigan. She holds a bachelor's degree in political science from Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland, and a master's degree in information studies from library science from the University of Maryland, and a doctorate in library and information science from the University of Wisconsin. So once again, I get to introduce someone who went to someplace I went to school. So I'm just pushing alumni networks and everything. So without any further delay, Dr. Rhea Lawson, thank you.
Well, hi. I know what it's like to, please keep right on eating. I know everybody's hungry. We're running a little bit behind, and it's my pleasure to be here, especially at this conference dealing with technology and digital inclusion and wireless, and my role here today as director of the Houston Public Library is to let you know how the public library fits in this discussion. Public libraries have been addressing the digital divide for years. There are, even in this city, about 50% of the residents of Houston are not connected, do not walk around with PDAs, do not have computers at home, and do not have work in environments where there are computers. I especially am appreciative of speaking right behind Jerome, Crowder, who drilled down into the lives of people. We don't quite do that, but we do meet people at the point of their need. The public library is a vital organization in communities, especially communities where low-income people live. They have opportunities to be connected free to the internet through the computer technology we offer at the public library, and public libraries all over the United States. I am going to move very, very quickly because I know you all want to hear about the bubble. The bubble that made front page with the mayor just a couple of days ago. And I'm very proud to say that the mayor has charged the Houston Public Library to make sure that happens in low-income communities based on the history of expertise that we've gained working with communities that are not connected. Brian, I may need your help. Ready to go. We're going to skip quickly through. I want to get to this screen. Okay, there we go. Thank you. And I want to quickly say also that we're a little behind and I'm crunched for time. So I'm really going to skip a lot of what I wanted to share with you this afternoon. So I'm going to get to what I think are key facts. And they are that We offer over 70 hours per week. People have access to the Houston Public Library for 70 hours per week. We have over 40 facilities and a budget of about $35 million. We have simultaneously, as I speak, over 15 building projects, ranging from ADA to complete new buildings. The important thing is that we have over 700 public access computers. You can visit any of our libraries at any day, and you'll see lines of people waiting to be connected. Sometimes people wait 2.5 hours to spend 1 hour on the computer. The need is that great. And if you know about applying for a job, you know, most jobs now, the application process is electronic. And so a lot of our public service librarians are assisting customers in their job search and in other kinds of important connectivity issues that they have. But these 700 computers were not enough, so we started getting laptop computers. Laptop computers do not confine you to a workstation, so we could loan that computer out from the circulation desk, and people could sit wherever in the library and still be connected because all of our agencies are wireless. And you can see from this screen that there are, to date, 230 laptops. Let's see, get to. Okay, the major technology initiatives that we are presenting or are engaged in now at the Houston Public Library, HPL Express, the mobile HPL Express, and Weekend Digital Inclusion Initiative that the mayor was talking about. Very quickly, HPL Express is changing the face public libraries do business in this country. We're very proud to be the first library in the country to introduce this initiative. Does this look like your grandmother's library? It is a library facility with very few print materials. Most of it is, most of our offerings are technology-based. We wanted it to look futuristic because we are trying to do a number of things, and one of the most important things we're trying to do is bring libraries into the 21st century and attract an audience that is 30 and under to help our ISDs and the Marriage Initiatives address the staggering dropout rate. So if we make libraries cool places to be and cool places to explore, then we capture some of that audience back. And also we address the competition that's out there that attracts young people. So if we make libraries cool places to be and we insert these kinds of facilities where people gather, we think that we can address that need. Already, we've opened the first one in Southwest in the Gulfton area, and that's where the mayor held his press conference. And Brian will come up here after I dash out to talk about that bubble and how we're going to leapfrog over from this fantastic facility to create that bubble in the Gulfton area. We also are going to insert one of these in Discovery Green. And we have two others, the new downtown park, and we have two others that we are planning within the next 18 months. Here is HPL Express, and you see some young people engaged in this very unique facility. Some of the things we offer are technical training, literacy program, workforce development training, and staff training. Staff training of other community organizations so that they can, because we have been doing computer training for so long, we are training trainers. We're going to put this concept on wheels, and you're looking inside the mobile HPL Express, where we take a bus in low-income neighborhoods and teach computer classes. And here is a concept design of that bus that will be arriving next month. We're really excited about that. And the WeCan means Wireless Empowerment Community Access Network. And Nicole Robinson is going to talk about that a little later on and tell you what all that means. But I'm going to now invite Brian up to tell you all about the bubble. I'm sorry we had to cut this so short. I've enjoyed being here, and I know that those of you interested in how we serve the underserved will be in conversations again. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I'm Brian Anderson. I'm the lead project manager for the city's wireless network. And I'm working on a number of things. I know everyone wanted to hear about the wireless bubbles, so I'm going to start off with that. And I think we have a video. I wanted to just give you an overview of what we're doing out in the communities. If we can just flip over to that video. You know, we actually have a portal. I'll show it to you, a community portal that we put together, and this is one of the things on the community portal. There's some music behind it, but we kind of posed the question as we talk to the communities. You know, it really comes down to software, educational software, healthcare software, getting access to that. And, you know, there's just some great things out there when you think about Web 2.0 software. On the educational side, homework help, free office software, gigabyte of storage. You know, when you combine that with high-speed broadband internet access, it actually gives people virtual access, virtual computers. And, you know, we have an ability to do that now. That's essential. So we want to look at how can we bring this technology to underserved communities across Houston. And what we found is that there is a substantial population in Houston that fits into this category. For whatever reason, they do not have access to all of this wealth of information. So the question is, how do we extend it? And, you know, we looked across the city, and Nicole's going to talk about the needs assessments that have been done in the communities and how, you know, we found this, but it would cost a substantial amount of money to run the traditional wires. You know, when we think about the next generation of technology, it's fiber. Fiber to the premises, fiber to the home. It would cost a substantial amount of money to do that. What we're doing is we're actually taking fiber to what we call fiber to the node. And for a very small investment, much less than what we would have had to have done to run fiber to each one of the connection points that we're creating, we're actually running Wi-Fi technology out to these locations. So what the video depicted is that we had, Dr. Lawson told you about the Houston Library Express. There are 35 computers in that location. It could be up to 3 miles from some of the residents that live in the neighborhood. Our goal is to create a viral network so that we can establish 20 more centers in that neighborhood that may be within walking distance of people, that may have better access hours after work for workforce development, after school programs. We're finding as we go out into the community, one of the programs we put out there was we just put in a 25 computer center at Christus Family Road. And I think they have about 600 participants. It's just a great, you know, a great offering. They have online lesson learning. You know, when you combine Web 2.0 and high-speed internet, it really begins to make a huge difference. And I'll talk to you about that a little more. I can answer some questions. I also would like to just quickly give you an overview of what the city is doing from a broader perspective. And I'm going to just go back up to the slides and give you an update. My role is, you know, I'm coordinating citywide initiatives. That would include wireless initiatives for public safety, public works, as well as community initiatives. So actually spend more time with police officers than I do with libraries. But I have more fun with the community side, that's for sure. You know, one of the things, just to give everyone an update, you know, when we started off with this, the objectives for the city's wireless network have not changed. You know, we have clear wireless requirements. There are about 7,000 city workers who work in the field constantly. You know, from public safety, we had an incredible initiative. We put high-speed broadband mobile internet into, we use a commercial carrier, but we put it into 50 patrol cars called the Crime Reduction Unit. The results were incredible, giving these officers information that they would have had to go back, booking information, mug shots. Their arrest records, their productivity went up tremendously. When we look at public works, you know, we see a tremendous opportunity to improve the effectiveness of government. You know, from our fire EMT officers, we have something called ER Link, getting information in. So the requirements, the point I'm making, the requirements haven't changed. The approach has changed now that Earthlink is gone. So the original goals that the mayor had were to improve the effectiveness of city government, bridge the digital divide, and boost economic development. That hasn't changed. Our approach has changed. So just to give you a brief background, I think everyone knows that Earthlink has decided to get out of the municipal wireless business. The city and the mayor they had a great contract, so to get out of the deal, Earthlink had to pay $5 million, and the money's in the bank. That Nicole hasn't spent already. But that was great, and you know, the thing I say is that, you know, one of the deals in the contract was to have a revenue share, and that revenue would have gone back to digital inclusion. It would have taken us, even if Earthlink had done incredibly well, it would have taken us many years to get $5 million worth of revenue. So Mayor White got it up front. That's incredible. And so now, you know, we're going at it aggressively, you know, looking at the needs and targeting those specific needs. So, you know, we are, I'll talk about that a little bit more. You know, just a change in plans. I think everyone knows the story about Earthlink. Right now, what the mayor has done with the $5 million is $3.5 million would be going to digital inclusion, and Nicole's going to talk about that. Not all of the $3.5 million will be going into the network. A large portion of that fund will go into training and equipment, PCs, you know, getting a lot of these computer centers stood up across the city. You know, one of the things we're doing now, which is interesting, because with Earthlink we were kind of doing a build it and then let's figure out how to use it later. Now that Earthlink is gone, we've taken a step back and we're working with the departments and we're looking at our applications. We're looking at our return on investment. We're finding significant opportunity. And so we're trying to coordinate this as opposed to every department or every agency going out and building a wireless network for their specific application. We're trying to approach it to build a common infrastructure. But we also realize that there's not a one-size-fits-all technology. So we actually have a significant amount of wireless infrastructure that already exists. I think many of you don't even know that the whole downtown business district is covered with Wi-Fi. And some of you may not know that we have a WiMAX network across the whole city. So we have been putting up applications for specific government use, and what we're finding is that we have so much excess capacity in this network that we're looking to extend it for other use as well. But we have significant ROI. The downtown network is an example. The payback was within less than a year. The network was primarily implemented to support the new credit card payment parking meters. Revenue has increased so much, and it's been such a convenience for people that the gain in revenue has more than paid for the network already. We're finding the same thing. We're looking at an advanced meter reading infrastructure. So instead of today, we have meter readers that have to drive around the city and they can read a radio signal. We're going to put that on a fixed network, and we're going to be able to add other services as well. So we can eliminate costs, we can make it more efficient. And I told you about the mobile workforce. We have about 3,000 public works workers and vehicles out there on the street, and we have about 2,500 police patrol cars and another 500 fire vehicles. They all need the same type of mobile access, and the applications are endless that we can put on that. And as you know, you heard about WeCan, bridging the digital divide. We think there's substantial value in getting into these neighborhoods and going from the 32 public accessible PCs that are in that library to 300 to 500 spread across 15 different computer centers. And we can spur that. It's kind of a viral network, the approach we're taking. The approach we're taking, and this is the challenge I have, is to begin to organize all these departments together. But we have developed a wireless strategy, and we're in the process of upgrading that. We're trying to stay current with technology. We're looking at different spectrums, 700 megahertz. We're looking at Wi-Fi. We're looking at WiMAX. We're trying to choose the right technology, but we're basing that on our application needs. And I told you about some of them, but we have our public works department. We have a huge, water, treatment facility. We have about, today we actually put up a WiMAX network. We have about 200 facilities across Houston in remote locations. And we're able to put up an advanced video surveillance network for the water supply system and also the water treatment system to upgrade that substantially, and also to remove some of the leased T1 lines that we're leasing as well. The city pays about $11 million a year in leased lines, and they have limited capacity. Some of this new microwave technology allows us to not only reduce costs, but actually substantially upgrade our capacity. But we're looking at a methodical approach where we have a framework, we identify application requirements, and then we develop that common infrastructure. We are working with a collaborative approach. We're bringing departments together. This morning I was at a meeting at Transtar. We're actually even starting to work across agencies with Metro and the state. There's some common fiber infrastructure and common usage of microwave infrastructure as well that we're looking at. So it's actually, there's great opportunity. It's a fairly complex endeavor, but I think we're well on our way. We've seen some substantial benefits already. It's an incremental approach. We're building solutions as we go, and it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle that we're putting together. That's it. I'd like to answer any questions you may have.
Do you have a time frame for getting to different milestones and seeing the end of the project, if such?
Which part? The bubbles or the whole thing?
Well, the entire spectrum, but because you're working with the city
Yes.
departments, and that's got to end sometimes.
Yeah. We're putting together a roadmap, and we actually have 36 different projects now that are part of that roadmap, and each of them have their own timeline. But the answer is yes, and I think every 6 months we're going to be implementing a new application and some new infrastructure. We currently have an RFP that's about to go out in the next few weeks. And we just put out an RFI. We had 20 responses. It was an incredible response. So there's a lot of excitement about it.
I'm just curious if you have given any consideration to either augmenting or replacing these public library facilities or putting some of these underprivileged locations with some of the low-cost laptop programs that are out there now, which would put computers actually in homes rather than having them in community centers. And I'm just curious if that was given any consideration, or is any consideration before?
I'm not sure. I think I'd have to defer that to someone from the library if they're looking at that.
What the investment is for one of the libraries, but when you start haven't looked at it, I suggest you do.
Yeah, I'm well aware of it. I will. Yes.
As you become more technological, are individuals being displaced and are their jobs being taken and are they being retrained? Is that a consideration for other positions?
You know, I think for the most part we've identified, you know, more if service improvement than staff reduction opportunities. In the case of, and I've seen it, I was a consultant down in Corpus Christi. In the case, as an example, with meter readers, there's such a high attrition rate with meter readers that actually staff reductions just occur through attrition. And I think, you know, that's what I've seen. I've worked in Philadelphia, I've worked in many of the cities. I've seen where where we apply a lot of this technology. Typically, they're high turnover jobs, and we're seeing that staff reduction occurs through attrition. But I do know, I will tell you that we had a situation where we upgraded the data center, and we had about 30 people in IT that were retrained to do other things.
What technology are you using for the line with maybe the manufacturers, AP?
We're actually using a few of them, but Alvarion is one. You know, we're using Redline, and we actually have both microwave. We have half gig of microwave backbone going in, and then we have point to multi-point using Alvarion. You know, running in a 4.9 spectrum, mainly for public safety, but we're also running 5.4 and 5.8.
With the Earthlink public-private partnership failing and Houston getting $5 million in penalty fees, the question may not really apply, but long-term, what would be the funding model? Because I'm assuming this is a public works project.
Yes.
What would be the sustaining funding model to continue developing the network? Is that a concern?
Well, you know, number one, as you know, the city makes a substantial investment in technology ongoing to improve its operations. And when we take an ROI approach, it becomes a no-brainer when you're reducing, improving efficiency and that type of thing. Number two, we're seeing other models emerging where there are some companies that will come in and run on top of the equipment you've take advantage of your excess capacity. So they will, if we can segment the network, and if we have 50% excess capacity on a network, for example, downtown, that's a great example. We have a substantial amount of capacity in our downtown network. One of the ideas that has been presented is to create a downtown, and also in the medical district, a hotspot network. So each establishment would take a Wi-Fi modem, and they would put it in their establishment, and it becomes connected to the network and becomes an instant hotspot. So if you're traveling at the zoo, or if you're downtown at dinner, you would have free Wi-Fi access in this hotspot network. And the revenue model is an ad model that would actually bring revenue in, and there's a revenue share that they're presenting.
That may not quite work in disadvantaged neighborhoods, right? That may work well downtown, but if you're thinking about the bubbles and trying to address these disadvantaged communities, then I think the revenue opportunities are much smaller in such neighborhoods.
Yeah, I think that, again, you know, the primary network that we're funding it through the Earthlink funds, but we think that there are opportunities. One of the things we've done is we've developed a social network. So digitalhouston.org is actually not only a directory to provide awareness of all these new Web 2.0 applications and free office software, but it's also a social network in that, and it's a trusted social network. It's not like MySpace. But PTA groups can create a group, teachers can create a group, apartment complexes can create a group, and they can now begin to connect and share information. So where you have a school that may have only had 20% parent participation, now there are new ways to reach those parents. And as you grow in this viral network of computer access centers, parents can go and get that information that was available at the PTA or connect with those teachers. So, you know, we're creating not only a network platform, but we're also creating a software platform that empowers the community. Now, that platform, you know, obviously, if we get up to, when you think about the fact that we're working with HISC and you get up to 50,000, 100,000 people using it, you know, you can put ads on it. And that could, we've seen that drives substantial revenue. The airport makes a substantial amount of money just by sharing revenue off of its Wi-Fi that's, you know, with the users in the airport system. So, you know, we're looking at other ways to create sustainable revenue that will come back in to, you know, fund the ongoing maintenance of the network as well as fund new PCs and other investments we can make.
Show us some more chart about your governance. And there was, okay, and there were, there you go. And there are 3 task forces. I'm just curious how you get people to work in those task forces.
The mayor? No. No. No, really, you know, it's interesting that, number one, there is a governance that the mayor has given direction on, and the CIO, Richard Lewis, has given direction on. But we're also finding that these departments that we're trying to go alone, they're overwhelmed. The technology changes too fast. It's very complex. And, you know, we're finding that folks are actually reaching out for help. And they need the type of expertise, they need to work together, and as a matter of fact, one of the projects we have is a video surveillance project, and I'm running a meeting with 10 other cities. We're doing a net meeting to just share information. So it's not only sharing information across departments, but we're also working with other cities across the country. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do a quick swap out of computer gear for Professor Knightley's presentation on the TFA Rice network. We're going to do it here because everyone looks pretty comfortable. And then we'll go to the panel discussion back inside when all of the panelists arrive. Ed Knightley.
Thank you, Chris, and I appreciate you all bearing with a engineering professor lecture right after lunch, and hopefully I can not lure anyone into sleep. What I wanted to talk about today is our project in the Houston community on deploying wireless networks. And before I even start, I wanted to acknowledge the team because, you know, Chris said I deployed a wireless network, and there's just a whole large team, including technology for all people that are here today. Jerome, who you heard before lunch. Cliff Dashow, I'll mention his work. He's a doctor at Methodist Hospital Research Institute, also collaborating with us. And then a host of students and other faculty at Rice. I listed some of the key collaborators right there. So let me start off with a little bit about the neighborhood that we've deployed the wireless network in. And I know Jerome told you a little bit about it this morning. So in Houston's East End, Pecan Park, about a third of the children are below the poverty line, and over half have a household income under $25,000 a year, and the high school graduation rate is a little over a third. Also, in importance to the health problems we'll look at later, the disease rates, chronic diseases and acute diseases rates are higher. That's a photo of an apartment complex that's covered by our wireless network. So as in communities like this, both Houston and nationwide, there are limits to IT resources that are consequences. And so you've probably seen statistics like this. These are Pew Foundation statistics that come out frequently. about what the percentage of households are with internet and IT access as a function of the household income. And typically they're dismal, as you're seeing here. Fewer than 10% of households with incomes less than $20,000 a year have high-speed internet access. Likewise for PC access. So, the question is, how do we get PCs? How do we get training? How do we get internet access? What are the applications that the communities will use? And ultimately, what new life opportunities does that provide? Our project goal, it's a mix of societal objectives and technical objectives. And on the societal side, I can't put it better than Technology for All's slogan about empowering under-resourced communities through technology. And then as we transform that into a technical objective that our research group addresses, the question we pose to ourselves is, how can we design wireless infrastructure that has a new cost to performance ratio that wasn't previously attainable, that will make this technology feasible in under-resourced communities. And also we wanted to explore what new applications could emerge that, rather than just say, quote, internet access, what else can we do with internet? So whether it's education and job training, work at home, and also healthcare, those are the applications that we're studying, we're pursuing, and we're deploying. And then the third aspect is it's a research platform. And this platform I use both in the classes that I teach and the PhD students that I supervise. And what makes this a great research platform, and I'll talk more about it in a little bit, is that it's a fully programmable and observable platform. So unlike commercial deployments, when the students have a new research idea, they are able to test drive it in the field. And that is something that is just unique among this project, that there are a lot of groups out there that can do simulations and test things in the lab, but bringing it out into the field with real users is a very unique thing to be able to do. And also to demonstrate their advances at a scale. So we have a large number of users in a small area, so that high density gives us a scale that allows them to explore questions of, well, what if we did this on a large urban scale? So what I'll talk about, and I'll keep it brief, is the Technology for All network. How does it work? And Chris promised you I wouldn't make it too technical, and so this will be a how does it work at 30,000 feet, and then likewise for the challenges in the research. So some of the research issues that we're addressing, and just to get you a little flavor for what are the challenges, both that drive the PhD students, but also that drive operational networks as well. We have collaborations with industry. Just a little quick story about Cisco. We have a grant with them, and we often ask them what problems they're incurring in the field. And I think they've been well coached by a legal team. And the answer is always, well, we don't have any problems. Our stuff works just absolutely fine. And then we'll tell them a problem that we're seeing. And then they'll say, oh, yes, we have seen that too. That does sound familiar. And so these problems are coming out in large-scale commercial deployments as well. But it's rare to read about them. Usually you hear about all the goals. But so Technology for All wireless. So what is this? So we have the platform, the research platform that we have is shown here in the middle. This is a custom wireless node. Each node, we get a waterproof box and in essence a programmable stripped down PC with a wireless card. And each one we assemble, we put it out in the field, drill the holes in it, and so on. So this is our custom platform. We are the wireless ISP for the region in Pecan Park. I'll show you a map in a little bit. Since late 2004, we started planning in 2003, and late 2004, our first nodes went live. As of I guess a few months ago, we had over 4,000 users, and our coverage area is about 3 square kilometers. And so what you're seeing here are pictures of the YMCA, which has a antenna on its roof. You're seeing here a small business in the community, a tire shop, which has an antenna attached next to it. You can see this pole right here. This is the roof of the Technology for All building on the right, and we have directional antennas on the top of that building because the fiber is located at that building. These two devices here are just examples of potential access devices that Technology for All has a long-standing program to get refurbished PCs into the community and to use this network. And as part of that, this USB 802.11 is one that they can use to access the network. And likewise, mobile clients, your iPhone can connect to it, as can any other similar device. Okay, so how does this all work? Well, the first part of wireless mesh networks is something that you all understand from your home usage and even from in-building usage, and that's the access tier. And that's actually the easiest part of it, other than the fact that it's outdoors and longer distances. And so the way the access tier works is that there'll be an antenna. And this is the antenna by the tire shop. And in commercial deployments, the antennas are usually on light posts. And then your devices, your iPods, your car, your at home, your residence, they communicate with those access points just like you would if you're using your laptop right now in this room. You're communicating with an access point in order to reach the internet. That's pretty well understood technology. Now, what's the difference? Well, the difference is in this room, the access point is wired. There's an Ethernet connected to it, and then it goes off to the rest of the internet. Or at your home, your access point is connected to DSL. So what's the difference here? There's no DSL. There's no Ethernet. There's no wire at all. So now you're at the tire shop. All your internet traffic's there. Now what are you going to do from there? Well, that's where the magic comes in, and all the research challenges and a lot of the research that we do is in this what we call the backhaul tier. And the idea is that you got here to the tire shop, but there's no wire there, there's no internet, that's not where you want to be. The internet, the fiber, is located at Technology for All. There's a single fiber in our neighborhood, and it's similar commercial deployments, a very small number of fibers. So how are you going to get from there to there? And that's where you start multi-hopping. So that's one of the key aspects of the technology, that you're multi-hopping. That this antenna relays your data to this antenna that's showing another antenna on a house. And you can also see there might be different paths that you can take. What's the best path to get there? So a lot of the research challenges come from those aspects. Now, you can imagine you can't keep multi-hopping too far. If you keep going house to house to house, each time things get a little slower, they get a little delayed, and if you just try to do that across a large area, by the time you got to the wire, you just have a little trickle of well, I was about to show you a really nice picture, but I will. Hopefully that one will come. But so the third tier of the network are these what we call capacity injection points. So the idea is that you can't continue to multi-hop too long because each time you lose a little bit of bandwidth. So that third tier is directional antennas, it's 802.16, it's WiMAX, it's something else to get capacity from where the fiber is into the community. And so our network has all three of those tiers in it. And then hopefully if my laptop comes back, I'll show you a picture of what our topology looks like and how all of those tiers work. So just to say a little bit about some of the differences and similarities between our approach and commercial approaches. So, you know, the key difference between our platform and commercial ones is this programmability, so that we can take the new research ideas and try them out. That's really what we are able to do that an off-the-shelf device can't do. But otherwise, architecturally, the commercial devices are doing the same thing. One of the key differences simply is how many radios do you use. And so more radios are ways of adding capacity to the system. If you have too many users over too small an area, then additional radios and channels are ways to increase the capacity. Now, let's see. I wanted to discuss some of the research challenges that we've encountered. One of the first ones that we came across was understanding the community, and that was really part of why this collaboration with Jerome Crowder, who you heard from earlier, started. Unlike a commercial deployment that comes by and just hangs stuff on the lamppost, we were putting up nodes in people's backyards. And so we had to find people that would be willing to be what we called antenna hosts. And so my poor graduate student would just knock on doors in that area and just ask them, would they like to have free internet? And of course, they just think, yeah, free internet, here's some salesman, let me just slam the door. And he likes to tell the story of how literally he got so frustrated, he was literally putting his foot indoors to stop them from slamming. And we have one antenna host to this day who's become a good friend of his, who initially tried to slam the door on him. But so, we have a component of the community really necessarily. We had to have it. We couldn't just go in there, put in the technology and see what happened. We had to work with the community to even deploy it. So we met with these antenna hosts, tried to convey what we were doing, the slides that I just showed you about a multi-hop network. We had to convey that to them, and we realized that early on when we had told them how they could get internet access. But what they didn't realize is when they had an antenna in their backyard, they were providing internet access to their neighbors as well. And they didn't realize that. And in some cases, the antenna host would be asked by their neighbors, what's that antenna for? And the answer that the antenna host would give is it's for TV, because they wanted to keep it secret. They didn't want anybody to know. Is this a secret? They said it was a research project. We should make, research sounds secretive, so we better not tell anybody about it. And then we explained, no, this is wireless. Everyone can use it. And we had another antenna host who regularly the network around her area was going down, and we would see this on our monitoring logs and couldn't figure it out. And so eventually we went to meet with her and say, have you seen any problems with this node? And we found out that every day she unplugs the node to plug in her vacuum cleaner, vacuums the house, and then plugs it back in. Meanwhile, there goes internet for the neighborhood. So we had some explaining to do. We had to really, all of the stuff I just conveyed to you, we had to convey in that community, especially to the antenna hosts. And then we went to the next level about the users, because there's also many, many users in the community. And we were dealing with a lot of users who were just new to the technology. And so that's where Technology for All played a critical role, setting up training courses and getting PCs into their hands. Let's see. One of the things we found very important early on was reliability. And so part of the engineer side of me says, let's maximize the performance. Let's provide more and more megabits per second, because the faster this network can be is the better. And then what we found is residents just really wanted something predictable. Even predictable and slow was better from their point of view than blazingly fast one day and then out the next day. They really liked that consistency. And we would find, we don't have this big network operations center, but we would find that when nodes would go down, we didn't always have automated ways to find out. And sometimes kids in the neighborhood would just ride their bikes down to Technology for All, knock on the front door and say, I can't get internet, and to have it be that important that people are just getting on their bikes and riding down, that just really shows you how important it is to just always be there and always be available. We found a little bit of unexpected use by police and by truckers, and unexpected to us because we were within that community. We had focused on the residents, And one evening I was presenting to the Civic Association meeting, telling the residents about the network, and then after me came a police officer, and he said, well, by the way, all the officers already know about your network. You know, they've been driving around, they have their laptops open, and they see, oh, wireless signal, let me see if I can get on it, and sure enough, it's open access, and they had all started using it. Likewise, the neighborhood is very close to I-45 and 610, and so we found that truckers are stopping, using the network, doing their uploading, downloading, and then continue on going. So it's just these unexpected usages have really emerged. What we found, and I'm sure Jerome told you some about this earlier, but the high value applications were education. That was really what the families said they valued the most, and the parents especially valued this, the ability to have internet for their kids. The kids, no doubt, played a lot of games on it. They still play a lot of games, and so that's of importance to them. But they also see the education side. Job search was big. Health information, streaming soccer, all of that was big. The poorly used stuff, Skype, we were a little surprised that was unutilized, because at the time you could make a free call with Skype and then free internet, and you can pretty much communicate free anywhere. And also online banking. And we found it was more an issue just with the technology itself rather than any concerns about security. Okay, so we seem to have slides back. And this was the picture that I wanted to show about the network. And so you can see here, so this is what the multi-hop network looks like. The black lines are these capacity injection points. So where all these lines meet here is technology for all. That is where the one fiber is. So there's only one wire serving 3 square kilometers. Just to give you bearings, this is I-45, and this is the 610 loop. So it's inside the loop. So this is, you're heading southeast, you keep going. There's Hobby Airport down here. So you exit before you get to 610, and you're in this neighborhood. I showed you a picture of an apartment complex that's right about here. So how this works is, if you're somewhere in the neighborhood, you first communicate with one of these red nodes, which is an antenna in someone's backyard. So that's that access tier. After the access tier, you're not yet at the hub of technology for all. So you're hopping either to these capacity injection points, and then you get this real fast shortcut, or you're hopping node to node until you get there. And all the technology as to how to make that happen, how to do that best with the lowest delay, that's where all the good research challenges are as to how to do that. Let's see. Okay. So, I briefly mentioned about that. So I'll keep going with the challenges, and I talked a little bit about the community. Let me give a few. I'll give a few technology challenge points, and then I'll close. Let's see, interference. One of the things is you've all probably had this moment in your home where you realize that your cordless phone didn't work while your microphone worked, while your microwave was on, and you probably had this brief moment to wonder why, and I'd be happy to explain that to you. It's a nice electrical engineering feat, how all that works. But the point is that there are devices all over in the 2.4 gigahertz band, as well as the 5 gigahertz band, and so they're all interfering with you. So you don't get this clean slate cellular spectrum that you're used to with your cell phones. Propagation challenges, all the early deployments you'd hear about, Corpus Christi, Tempe, what do they all have in common? No trees. You wonder why? Well, because these trees, this is Portland, really kill propagation. And that wasn't one of the early lessons everyone learned. And so this was an article from the Oregonian. I don't know if you can see it from back there, but how residents were complaining like crazy. They found the coverage too poor, the signal too weak, and so on. I think that Mayor White's really on top of this. He's given a great water analogy where it's to at least create the expectation as an outdoor service. It comes to your window, and then you put one of those antennas like these near your window, and then that's going to pull it into the house. From the house, that's your own. How you distribute it through your house. You can have a repeater. You can just connect the PC right there, but that's your own issue to deal with. So the point being, though, that these propagation environments are new propagation environments that we don't have experience with in the past. They're very unlike inside here. They're very unlike inside your house. There are a ton of devices out there, and trees are just killing that signal. Much in a way that a wall in your house would. You try to go through too many walls, you probably have the sense that how the signal degrades with each wall. Let's see, reliability. I mentioned the importance of it a moment ago, and one of the good news with reliability that a lot of the early work on multi-hop networking came out of DARPA projects. DARPA stands for Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. So it's a federal research agency focused on defense. And the original problem they posed was we have a military operation, there are tanks, each one should be able to communicate to any other one, but there's no fixed infrastructure. How do you do that? And of course, they had in mind the tanks move, tanks could be blown up, that it had to be resilient to all sorts of failures. So we've got those good roots as to making it resilient. So if any of those paths fails, so actually when the lady unplugged her node and plugged in her vacuum cleaner, all the nodes reconfigured. They just routed around that, and it fixed itself. But the problem is, it does eventually fix itself, but the problem is real-time applications. People are using the internet, they want really fast interactivity. They don't want to wait for, it's not just about connectivity, it's about the interactive experience. So that becomes one of the research problems. And I mentioned how we have a lot of PhD students working on it. That's one of the students' thesis is about how to make this network rapidly recover from failures when they occur. Let's see, security. This is a network, it's a lot different than your cellular network. Your cellular network is so much more closed. The device is proprietary. The infrastructure is just inherently, and your service provider are all inherently just tightly knit together. Now, 802.11 is a much more open technology. And so the question is, how do you provide security in this open environment where you've probably seen this before. Anybody can pretend to be an access point. I can come in here with my laptop and create a network that says Rice University's free network. And you can all think, oh, that sounds good. I'm at Rice, that's probably it. And here I am taking all your traffic, observing everything, trying to get all your keys and hoping you send something unencrypted and so on. So it's a very different type of environment. And so how do you deal with security in a world like that is very challenging. And our users here are a lot of new users, so that's not a picture of a lot of the people in the neighborhood, but just to say that I'm sure you've all had the experience of attempts to get viruses on your computer and so on, so the more naive users are much more vulnerable to that. So we have to make sure our network is secure and robust to attack, even if it's not truly originating from people in the neighborhood. Okay, I'll just show one more research thrust of the project. I alluded to this a couple times, and that is health sensing. And so we have a collaboration with Methodist Hospital and Technology for All. And the goal was to address chronic disease, and in particular starting with cardiovascular disease. So cardiovascular disease is responsible for 40% of deaths in Texas, and it is higher prevalence in lower income communities. So Cliff Dashow is the doctor that we work with at Methodist, and he has a hypothesis about how to use low-cost sensing in order to provide monitoring and input for managing chronic diseases. And so this is his device over here. It's called the Blue Box. And he named it that simply because it's a blue and shaped roughly rectangularly, and he knows he needs more, better marketing people to help him with the name. But anyway, this is the blue box, and what it does is it basically takes you back to how did doctors manage cardiovascular disease before you could go into the hospital and have a scan? And the answer is, just one example is doctors back in the 1950s could put a hand on your heart and a hand on your pulse and feel for the phase difference. And if you had a long phase difference, meaning pump, and then a long lag between when you feel your pulse, then that means a weakening heart. And if that's weakening over time, then that means a degradation in your condition. Now, doctors don't do this today because they have the scanner and they can just hook you up to that. They can find a much more detailed picture of you. But the question is, if those technologies aren't available to lower income communities, then what can we do? And so his goal is to make these devices so cheap that you can buy them at CVS. And the challenge for him is, how do you take these signals that this generates and build a personal norm so we know where you in particular are, and then understand when deviations from that norm are sufficient to require medical intervention. And so that's where this all connects, that this device connects with wireless devices, which connect with the network, which connect with the internet, and which connect with Methodist Hospital and so on. So it all, and of course with technology, healthcare workers that are in the field. So all of those working together. Okay, so let me summarize that. We put wireless on the ground by the people. The people are hosting the nodes, and it's for them, it's for their neighbors, and it's a community effort. We have a lot of research challenges. There's a lot of open problems about how do we keep getting the bandwidth up? How do we make sure this is as resilient a service as you've come to expect out of DSL, Ethernet, all the other internet services? That it's secure, reliable, ultra low cost, all those properties. And then the ultimate questions, and that's a lot of the collaborations with both Technology for All, with Methodist Hospital, with others, is what is all of this going to be used for? And what are the applications that will really empower people? And so, we're formulating the question, not just how can this be cheaper DSL, but what can we do now that wasn't possible with DSL? And with that, I thank you very much for your time. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. So we have time for a couple questions, if you have time.
Yes.
So please come to the, or we ask that you come to the microphone. So I'll turn the other one off.
Is this mesh technology developed enough to be considered for the bubbles in Houston?
Well, the bubbles in Houston are, in essence, deploying a commercial variant of this technology. So I mentioned collaborating with Cisco, and I believe Tropos is the vendor for this for Houston. So the multi-hopping concept most certainly is. Now there are challenges moving forward. It's not a deployment like putting Ethernet in your building. You put it in, you know it's going to work. People have been doing it for decades, and we know what's going to happen. It's a lot more. You know challenges are coming, and you know that you're going to have propagation challenges, interference challenges, and it's going to be very difficult to get the service at that level that you want it. But I think that it certainly is in the stage where we have enough experience to deploy it on larger scales.
I just wanted to note that the the network we're putting in is going to be a segmented network, and it's actually going to support public safety and public works as well as community needs. So the back-end security is just as important as the radios that are out in the network. So, you know, there's a lot more that we probably have to focus on in terms of security and segmentation and quality of service that if we were just putting out a community network, we probably wouldn't focus on as much. So that may be a difference in the network as well.
We heard a lot this morning about capacity, particularly with the multimedia demands and video demands. What is your sense about the scalability to the capacities that we're looking at 3 years down the road?
Yeah, we've been doing experiments with that, and in fact, I have a project team right now who's out in the field doing IPTV measurements to see, you know, what the network is capable of. I mean, certainly, you know, at this point, we're rate limiting users to 500 kilobits per second, which is more along the lines of the lower end DSL. If we were to increase that because of our high density, then we would really be pushing on capacity. The good news is that the physical layer technology keeps getting better and better, along with the protocols as to how to distribute the bandwidth. So, you know, you've probably heard the buzz about, you know, 802.11n with multi-antennas, and they make outrageous claims, but nonetheless, the bandwidth it keeps increasing. So your old 802.11b was 11 megabits per second, then 54, and now into the hundreds. So those links are going to keep getting faster and faster. So the hope is that as people want to do more and more aggressive applications, video, real-time streaming, that the wireless technology and then the networking protocols to distribute it will keep up with that. Okay.
What actual radio technology are you using? I heard you mention the WiMAX, and are you doing anything with any orthogonal technology?
Yeah, we, let's see. Currently, we have 802.11b G for access and backhaul, and then 802.11 directional for these black lines right there. A slide that I didn't give because of time, but I can just allude to it a little bit, is that we have a second platform at Rice, which is we call the WARP platform, for wireless open access research platform. And that's where we can do things completely clean slate. And we can say, well, what if we just threw away this 802.11 altogether and threw away WiMAX and just did something that, you know, at least in our lab is much better. And so, you know, that's where the research can really be ambitious and clean slate design. So we have another platform that's in the lab ready to go out there. And what we'll end up doing is taking those black lines for capacity injection and experimenting with not only WiMAX, but also new ideas that we're coming up with in the lab. So right now, you know, the answer to your question, what about right now, is just 802.11a point-to-point links. But in the future, those are going to be different research protocols that we're developing. Okay, thanks very much.
And the next step in the plan is a couple panels back inside the lecture hall. So I'll open it up, and we'll get started in there in just a couple minutes.